Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the final session of the Hot Topics and Trends in Construction. I am Sean Nahavik. I've really enjoyed spending time with you over the last couple of days, and Plant Moran being a sponsor of this Strong Spirits series. So appreciate it. We like to be a part of this and have really enjoyed the dialogue over the last couple of days. So it's been great. 23 consecutive years, we have made the Fortune magazine's list of 100 best companies to work for. So, a lot of these topics that we've been talking about have been fantastic and things that we fully appreciate. So today, this session, we have three industry leaders, Mike Tafoya, Dirk Dixon, both are partners with Portocol Business Strategies, and then Mark Olesen, owner of Mark Olesen Group. They're going to take us through the 6 stages to building loyal, engaged employees, which is, pretty much all we talk about these days is trying to, retain our best talent. So more employees are leaving their jobs voluntarily than ever before. Turnover is frustrating and expensive. So you can't eliminate it, but, at least you can make a significant difference by focusing on employee engagement and long-term loyalty. So, gentlemen, why don't you take it away? Thank you for being part of this.
Thank you, Sean. Certainly appreciate it. And I just for everybody here, my name is Mike Tafoya, and I'm CEO and president of Portocol Business Strategies, partner with Dirk Dixon. We've been helping small business owners in the Denver market. And now much beyond the Denver market for 15 years. Really proud of the work that we do. We are highly focused on helping business owners and business leaders align strategy, culture, and systems so that they can build scaling companies for their long-term success. So we're passionate. We like to say our vision, your vision is your success. So glad that you're with us today. We'll be taking you through these slides. Dirk and Mark, please introduce yourselves.
Go ahead, Dirk.
Okay. So this is Dirk Dixon, and I'm with Portocol Business Strategies, also a partner and cohort with Mike. So looking forward to being here with you today.
And I'm Mark Olesen. I've been in the construction community in Denver for many years, nearly 40 years with Pinkard Construction, in the last nearly 5 years doing work with contractors independently and helping them with improve their profitability and processes. So glad to be here and welcome.
Thank you, Mark, Dirk. Let's go ahead and jump in, Dirk, as we move through. I want to talk just a little bit about today's agenda. We're going to be looking at, matter of fact, Dirk is going to be sharing some employee statistics that we'll be able to share with you on engaged and disengaged employees. It's really interesting to see some of those numbers. And then I'm going to walk you through a couple of graphics to help illustrate the challenges that we face as leaders in business as our companies grow and as employees move through their employment life cycle. And then we're going to talk a little bit about an in-depth conversation about what employees need at these different 6 stages that we see employees go through during their lifetime. And then Dirk's going to share leveraging employee strengths for success towards the end. There will be commentary back and forth. Mark, Dirk, and I will be commenting together on many of these items. So get ready. We really want to encourage, and just go ahead with the next slide, Dirk. Really want you to truly connect and engage with us through the chat. So feel free to ask a question and comment along the way, and we will be sharing those comments throughout this hour. So right off the bat, I'd like you to post something that you'd like to get out of today's session. So you heard the introduction, you knew what you signed up. There must be one thing that you'd like to get out of today's session. I'm not sure we're going to deliver everybody's desires, but we certainly can address them here. And then next, I would love for you to share or describe your top challenges. Maybe leave it, keep it to one or two challenges. But what are your top challenges in recruiting, hiring, and retaining top talent? And I think that's really the key. Is what is the goal here? So you can go move on. So please, let's see the chat room moving along. I'll be keeping my eye on that, and you can move to the next screen.
All right, Mike. So you want me to handle this one, right?
Yep.
Perfect. So look, none of this will be surprising to any of you. I'm sure you've seen these numbers before, and they are still just as alarming as they were when they first came out. It would be a mistake to skip over these. So let's just quickly level set on the numbers, and that will lead up to the next part of the conversation. So first of all, let's talk about engaged versus disengaged employees. 34%, as you know, of employees are engaged, a very low number, only 1 out of 3. The ratio is roughly 2.6 to 1. It's really overwhelming how few employees are actually engaged. 53% are actually not engaged, and 16.5% are actively disengaged. That means they're actively working against the goal or the initiatives that the company are trying to accomplish. Second set of numbers that are interesting around this topic is that 81% of employees would consider leaving their jobs for the right offer. That's an astonishing number.
8 out of 10, Dirk.
Yeah. 74% of younger employees would accept a pay cut to have their ideal job. So there's that idealistic being willing to work for the ideal job and scenario. And then 23% of job seekers would not need a pay increase to take a new position.
And that's an interesting quarter of the employees would. So it's not all about money. Mark, any thoughts on any of these stats that you'd like to share?
No, I just think it's a great setup for some of the things you guys are going to cover, and how you just made the comment. It's really not about pay in many cases, and yet we're often focused on pay. So I think this is a great intro to the subject.
Yeah, I mean, there certainly is, and we'll see, there certainly is a component where acknowledgement, rewards, and compensation play a role in all of that. Right. As you well know, but it's really not. I like to use the 80-20 rule here. I would say 80-20, it's everything else, and then the 20% is the compensation, rewards, bonuses. I mean, all of those kinds of incentive compensation elements. So thank you, Dirk.
All right. So a few more numbers for you, and then we'll get into some of the meat here. So first of all, you all know engagement matters. If you look at the numbers, it results in 4 times higher per share shareholder earnings when you have employee engagement. It also results in 20% greater customer engagement, and companies that have engaged employees are 21% more profitable. Along with that, of course, you're going to see better retention, fewer accidents, especially compared with their competition. Bottom line is that organizations and teams with higher employee engagement and lower active disengagement perform at higher levels.
Yeah, you say that everybody knows these things, Dirk, and it's not that we don't know them, but it's oftentimes not top of mind. And some of these numbers, I know as I share these with business owners day in and day out, some of them are blown away by the numbers. When you think that, only 1 in 3 of my employees are engaged in the company, meaning 2/3 are somewhat disengaged, right?
Exactly.
So I think it would be interesting just to take one moment and talk about, what an engaged or disengaged employee looks like. So I'll just toss that up for the 3 of us. What are your thoughts on that, gentlemen?
Well, certainly one of the most important things, I think, in that regard is, are they interested in what the company is trying to achieve? Do they even know what it is, and are they actively involved in trying to help you get there?
Yeah, I agree. Dirk, any thoughts there?
Yeah, I think if you look at motivation and what inspires employees, what in fact what even keeps them around, I do feel like having a clear sense of the direction the company's going, and understanding the meaning of that. What's the meaning of my work? I think that's so important. And if there is meaning, I'm going to work a lot harder to accomplish what the company's trying to accomplish than if there's not. If there's not, it's going to be hard for me to be productive.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Yeah, move along to the next slide, please.
All right. Another topic that we felt like was very relevant to the session was talking about what's happening with remote and also even hybrid trends. So if you look at what current employees are expecting, they prefer a hybrid working model, 68% of them. Neither remote nor fully in office, but some combination of both. In addition to that, 42% of remote workers would quit their job if their employer does not offer some sort of long-term remote options. And then thirdly, 87% of American workers want to continue working remotely. So the numbers are staggering. Again, we've come out of this season where we went all remote for a little while, and I don't know that we'll ever get all the way back to fully in office, nor should we expect to.
Yeah, I think these are really interesting. You think about the the generational aspects of our workforce, and lifestyle, flexibility are probably way more important than compensation. And so there's a tremendous amount of value, I think, that we can, I think, take advantage as employers, building environments for our people to allow people to be most productive in an environment that they're going to thrive in. So these are, I think these are very exciting and certainly interesting for employers to consider.
Agreed. And one thing I'll add is I see a lot of CEOs who are really challenged on this topic specifically. They have a bent towards in-person. They may have trouble operating in an environment where employees aren't around, and yet the workforce is demanding it. So it's definitely a challenge and something that needs to be embraced in some fashion.
Yeah, and I've had that same conversation with business owners. Mark, you may have too. It's like, how do I build a relationship with somebody on my video screen?
Right.
It's and we had been working remotely for some time before the pandemic, so we had already started to evolve, and that's just one of our core values, is our learning core value, which talks about the evolution of Portocol as environments change. And so this is one example of the need for that particular core value in our business to be able to make those improvements and changes and evolve and do something different. But we can all do that. And I think what I've learned is that building a relationship online is very similar to building a relationship with people face to face. I have to be authentic. I have to be focused on purpose and culture, and I have to tell people what my goals are with them, and so that they know why we're meeting and what it is we're doing. So we're building relationships across states and regions, right online. So I believe we can successfully do this remote environment.
Agreed.
Yeah, and I'm going to take the next few slides, and I want to share one of our foundational infographics at Portocol Business Strategies, and that's our business life cycle. And depending on what business classes you've taken, you've seen different models of the development of a business over its life. But this one takes a very unique position as to how involved the business owner. You see this line that runs through the center called owner-centric. I call that the owner-centricity line in a business. And as the business moves from the beginning stages, existence and survival, into the more mature success, growth, and sustainability stages, the the business depends less on the ownership for the operation throughout the final success stages into growth and sustainability, where now we have other leaders, we have managers and other leaders that can take the company to the next level without the owner being in the center of the business. And when I think about the kinds of businesses that we're building, every one of my clients will tell you that they're building a high performance business, right? And so to build those high performance businesses, they need high performing employees. And so that's the goal of what the discussion is today, is how do we attract, maintain, and retain long-term these high performers? And so that's really, at center at what it is we're talking about here. Interesting about the business life cycle is that the people that help the business grow initially through the existence and survival, and even into success stage, are primarily individuals that are doers. They are individualistic. They are great at accomplishing tasks and working towards goals. But as the company scales and grows, those leaders need to transition into people who can lead groups of people and be less doers and more leaders. And that's where that transition can become difficult from the early stages to the mature stages. It's difficult to make that transition. You might have seen that before, you might even have experienced it. So that's the goal. Remember, we're building high performance businesses and we're looking for high performing employees. And I see a question here, just to stay on top of this, is how do you manage the fairness factor to have some office staff able to work remotely while the field staff don't have that option? So just a quick break there, and that's interesting. How do you manage that fairly? We'll just toss it up for a brief discussion.
I think that's a great question in our industry. That's a real challenge with so many of our key employees that simply can't. I mean, we can't build remotely, so that makes it tough. Great question.
Yeah, agreed. The only thing I'll add there is if you look at the brain science, our sense of fairness is one of the easiest things to trigger, and so yeah, you're right to be thinking about that and looking for ways. I would suggest finding creative ways to provide other benefits or perks, or maybe flexible days off or something like that to my other employees, just to sort of make sure there's that fairness element.
Yeah, and I'll add this one thought too, is remember, not everybody wants the same thing.
Agreed.
And so there may be people that want remote that can't get it. Well, that might not be an ideal fit. You might have somebody that wants to work in an office. And so, I think you need to be very straightforward about what your needs are as an employer and what the environment is going to be, so that you can attract the right person that's going to be the best fit for that role and for the environment that they'll be working in. And so that oftentimes eliminates the fair fact, whether it's a fair factor or not, because you're coming into an agreement with employees individually based on the needs for that role and the needs for that employee.
So you're saying, Mike, we shouldn't set out to treat everybody the same.
Well, we certainly want to find the right fits for people, right?
Right.
And and the same set of benefits is not going to be exactly the best fit for every employee, and every environment is not going to be the same for every employee either. And we have that in companies that we're not even talking about remote working, but there's just other factors, right? You've got superintendents who are in the field all the time, maybe in the office 10% of the time, and they don't have the luxury of being in the office. So there are different environments, even in companies that we're not talking about remote working.
Right.
Yeah, let's move forward. I want to get into this next slide. Certainly, if you have any questions about any of these, thank you for that question. I hope we answered it. Give me a heads up or a thumbs up if we did, and we'll move forward. So it's really interesting. We developed this employee life cycle several years ago as we were trying to benchmark, the employee experience, right, and what we could do. We did get the thumbs up there, so thank you for that. And I love this graphic. This is a very practical tool that you can actually use in your business. And you can see there's a ton of words that can be used to describe attitude. These are not all of them. These are the ones that we felt fit this particular graphic the best. All the way from an employee that has an inspirational sort of aura about them, all the way down to an employee that is conflictive and defiant in their behavior in the workplace. And so you see that attitude on the left, and then aptitude horizontally. And these are the 6 stages of the employee cycle, and all the way from inquiring to learning to emerging to producing, stabilizing, and sustaining. Those are all the impacts, right? And aptitudes as employees engage in our businesses. And so ultimately, if you look at these 4 quadrants, right, we see that in the upper right hand, we've got very positive attitude and highly productive and stabilizing, even sustaining factors in the business. So we want to be able to develop and lead our people to live somewhere in that upper right hand quadrant of this chart. And then you can see the different factors as we look through there. So what we want to talk about today is what do employees need as they move from inquiring through the maturing stages, as they learn and start to emerge as a viable employee in the business. And that can take anywhere from 6 months to a year just to get them to start being a high producer in the business, right? It's where you're actually producing at a level that brings a substantial return on the investment for the employer. And then you have beyond that stabilizing. Have you ever had an employee that when they would walk in the room, all the chaos just seemed to sort of melt away? That's the kind of employee we're talking about there. And then sustaining, really is the mature employee that helps you actually run the business day to day. You could leave the business in the hands of a sustaining employee and know that most things would be taken care of that they had their hands on. So looking at those 6 stages, what do they need? So I'd like to talk about that, and certainly wanted to share this employee life cycle. You can see through here that training, coaching, and then disciplinary action, and then support and direction long term as some of the elements, but we'll dig in on the next slide. Before we go to the next slide, Dirk, Mark, any comments on this?
Yeah, Mark, go ahead.
No, for you,
good. Okay. So one comment I was going to make, Mike, is that we do see employees naturally go through this. Every employee really goes naturally through this type of curve. And I think one of the key points is you want to catch them that their low point is as high as possible, right? It doesn't have to get down to the despair conflict level. And in fact, that's the whole point of the training and coaching, is catch them a little higher and keep them higher.
That's a great point. And you illustrate this J, right? The J curve, right, is really a scientific element. All living creatures go through this, right? We start out, you can just imagine a little plant coming up and all the leaves and everything are just bright and beautiful, and then it starts to flower and it gets, it's sort of at its peak up here, and then it starts to get weathered and somebody forgets to water it, right? And before you know it, it's not looking very good or feeling very well. It's our jobs as business leaders to do just what you said, Dirk, and that's make sure that bottom is as high as possible before we get them up into the upper quadrant. So thank you for highlighting that part of the graphic as we move forward. Yeah, so I want to really talk about, think about what the different elements that employees need at these different stages. And you have the very first stage, the inquiring stage. It's a really important, and for small businesses, this may be one of the biggest challenges. Providing, structured, anything structured in a small business is a challenge, but certainly we want to provide as much structure as we can, but structured enculturation, right? Helping them understand what the purpose of the company is, helping them understanding what the values of the business and what behavior looks like in the company. And then providing, in addition to the enculturation, specific job training. And oftentimes in small companies, and I think small companies, anything under 100 employees, certainly a small business, even bigger than that, where job training can be a challenge, right? We don't have a on-site trainer where people need to shadow other people in other departments to get an idea of what's happening in this business. But people need, and in today's environment, with generational differences, people want structured job training, right? From their managers, from their leaders. They want some video training. They want one-on-one training. They want one-on-one coaching as they're learning. And so it's really important to be able to understand and break it down to that level. And back in the day, we would just put them on the job and train them as they go. And today, that just is not as effective as it used to be. Mark, I see you smiling there. Please, if you have a comment.
Well, I think you made a great point, though. This is a challenge, especially for smaller businesses who don't have structured training programs and budgets. It takes way more effort and intentionality, perhaps, to achieve some of this when we're a small business.
Yeah, and so that's why we're certainly empathetic for these small businesses that, like you said, they don't have the budgets. Even more than budget is, and along budget, right? They don't have time budget, right? They don't have time to be able to do it because the business owners are doing everything in the business. If you looked at the business life cycle in the first stages, the business owner is doing almost 80% of the work. Certainly at the beginning, they're doing 100% of the work. So any people that come into the organization, there's not a lot of time to give them. So this is key. I like to think about it, and as I was growing small businesses in my career, and I grew up in the construction industry. I was a glazer, so I owned a commercial glazing company for many years successfully. And so I understand what it's like to bring people in and have to train in a trade or in any form. But what I learned is that if I could invest a small amount of time specifically devoted to training, that it paid off long-term for me so that I could actually kind of get the horse in front of the cart, right? So if I would spend a few extra hours training this employee, I could get them up and running faster, and that would save me time a few weeks down the line. And it's hard to get that rhythm going. I'm not saying it's easy, but I'm saying if we can shift our thinking and take the time to devote, it will pay off long term. So there is a mentality thinking process to that.
Yeah, I'll just add something there if I can, Mike.
Please.
We hinted at it earlier, but it's really, we can't overemphasize the importance of what happens in that first 90 days for an employee. And even to a large extent, the first 6 months, and being really intentional about that onboarding and the training and where are we taking them? How are we clarifying expectations? Everything we do in that first 90 days to 6 months has a direct impact on retention of that employee eventually, on their morale, on their engagement, on their productivity, and will cause them to either stick around or maybe not if we don't take that part seriously.
Yeah.
And then the second thing I'll mention is the thing working against us here is the curse of knowledge. And that is where a manager or a leader, once they have a certain knowledge, they forget what it's like not to have that knowledge. And so sometimes there can be a gap there for the manager where they just can't figure out why the employees don't understand or why it's not clear to the employees. But the bottom line is it isn't. And so really taking that time to be abundantly clear and validate with the new employee.
Well, and along there, I love what you said. It took us years to gain this knowledge. And it took us thousands of interactions and activities to gain that knowledge. So we have to give our people some time. So as they move through inquiring, this inquiring period, I think for the most part is about a 30 to 60 day period of time, right? Where they're really asking a lot of questions. They're learning as much as they can about everything in the company. They're trying to learn systems. We're trying to learn the job. And now we're starting into the learning stage. And what I mean by learning, certainly you're learning through this inquiry stage, but I probably I'm not really asking as many questions in the next 60 days. I'm actually start to integrate the knowledge that I'm learning into my daily activity, right? So now is where I can really start to get clear on what's expected out of the employee in terms of production, in terms of quality, volume of work, etc. Right? So what are the expectations? Timeline. How long should it take to do this specific activity, etc. Right? And that's where you can come back to the job description at this stage and review the job description and your business culture again in depth with the employees so they truly understand expectations. We're going to learn how important this is through the 12 questions later on. And certainly this is where we want to really coach this employee through the challenges that they face in that next 60 to 90 day period of time. And this learning stage, I would submit, is another 60 to 90 days that they're really starting to integrate what they've learned into their daily practice.
So guys, does this emphasize the importance of having meaningful job descriptions and getting them out of the drawer and actually using them and talking about them?
Absolutely. I mean, I think that's a great point, Mark. And what have you experienced in your career with that?
Well, I think most of us would say we have job descriptions someplace, and sometimes we can find them, and oftentimes we haven't looked at them. And then I see us recruiting with a different job description than the one we actually expect people to perform to, and so there's misalignment from the get-go when people come aboard and think the expectations are different than what we really have.
Mark, I'm with you 100%. The job description to me is a living learning document that is underutilized in most businesses. Mm-hmm. And so I think, that's certainly your point. And what we believe is that, the job description should clearly outline what the duties of the job, we call them primary duties. It's like, what is this person actually going to be held responsible for doing? And the results that they're expected to get in performance expectations. And then that job description should be a coaching and evaluation process continually, month over month, where managers should be, coaching their employees directly from the job description. So if your job description isn't clear enough to be able to do that, then you don't have the right job description.
Right.
right? So if you can coach your employees to do their job with the job description at hand, then you have the right job description, right? And that's the purpose of the job description. So any other thoughts on that, Dirk?
Yeah, I'll just add that your best employees crave clarity. They want to get things done. They want to achieve. They want to be productive, and especially true for today's workforce. They are craving that ongoing coaching. How am I doing? What am I expected to do? How will I be measured? So that represents your best employees. And if we don't give them that clarity, they will feel irrelevant. They will feel ambiguity, and that will drive hesitation, procrastination, and ultimately a feeling of irrelevance, which will drive them away.
Absolutely. I mean, most employees, what we know is that a very large percentage of your employees want to do a great job.
Yep.
Period. They don't want to show up and do a bad job today. They want to show up and do a great job today. So if we can help them understand what that job is, then we allow them to do a great job. And I'll give you a real construction example. When we equip and stage a project, right, a job, for completion by our people, right? We put people on site. We help them get organized. We put tools and equipment on site. We have supervision typically on site. And then some of the materials for the project arrive. And so those installers, tradesmen, can only do the work that is in front of them to do. They can't do all the work because all the materials are not there. But if we can provide them with clear plans, all the materials they need, they will get that job done in time 90% of the time. It's only when these other delays cause them to delay along the line. So it's a lack of clarity. It's all interruptions in their workforce, and the lack of having all the materials available for them. So that's to me a real life example of how that works. And so if we can provide them with a great job description, we'll be really equipping them. The next stage, emerging. What I mean by emerging is really talking about somebody really coming into their own. I can really start to see, if we were looking at a plant as it were growing, right? It comes out of seedling stage, it starts to get, some stems with some sturdiness on it through the learning stage, and now it's emerging, so it's got buds, right? These buds are starting to form on the plant. So if you can that's how I see that emerging employee. They're starting to bud, right? They're full of life. The plant is healthy. It's been watered. They've got sunshine, right? They've got the energy force. They know what the purpose and the passion of the business. They understand the core values. They are part of the culture of the business. And they're emerging, right? And so they want to know. They want to know where the sun is. Give me the sun, right? So clear direction, right? They need clear direction. It's not so much the knowledge anymore, but what to do. Think about this one example, and I've had this many times. I've had these emerging employees literally paralyzed. And I'm like, well, what's going on? What's paralyzing? And they're like, Mike, I have got so many things to do that I don't know what to do next, right? I've got 20 important things, or they look important to me. They certainly are. If you look at my job description, all of these things are important. But what do I do? And that's where I can help them prioritize, right? Through coaching, help them with skill sets, maybe that they need to hone some skill sets, and really understand what they're responsible for and what other things might somebody else be responsible for. And so these are clearly very one-on-one manager to employee sessions to help them with prioritization, direction, coaching on skill sets, and knowing what's theirs and what's not theirs, and what they need to do and what they can delegate or make sure and allow others to do their jobs. Thoughts on that, gentlemen?
Nope, you did good.
Yeah, and quick time check, Mike. We have about
Yeah.
18 minutes.
Great. Let's move forward. I want to just hit on these producing, stabilizing, and sustaining. Look, these are the more mature employees. By the time you get somebody to this stage, these are the people that I would say over 90%, we want to keep these people, right? These are the people we've invested in. They've started to develop and mature. They're producing. These are the people that are really, bringing in the revenue. They're making the sales. They're producing on the job sites. And we depend on these people for the success of our business, as much as anything. Producing, they need support, right? They need the right equipment. They also need direction, but support, right? Support is more important. They need the right equipment. They need the right tools. They need the right people. They need the right systems in place. And these people like to be acknowledged, and they need to be rewarded, because, right, most of the weight, I'm going to say, is on these individuals in the company. The next stage, stabilizing. Think about that. Stabilizing, tactical direction. These people need to be able to lead teams, right? If I'm a stabilizer, right? If I'm one who can stabilize, that means I'm going to have people around me that are willing to follow me, that are willing to take direction from me. So I need to know what the strategy and tactics are for accomplishing the work in front of us. They also need support. And these people need to be properly compensated, or you will lose them to somebody who is willing to compensate them at the right levels. So I think this is a difficult thing, because a lot of smaller businesses say, Mike, I can't afford to pay those wages. I can't compete with the Amazons of the world, or, whatever the next example might be. But these are people to invest in, and these are people that you want to retain long term. So not only compensation in salary, but certainly in benefits as well. And then finally, sustaining. These are the people that are going to help us grow these companies and create real value for the entire organization. These individuals need to have strategic support. These are the individuals that I will bring with me into strategic planning, into functional planning sessions, so that they're part of the business, not just taking direction. These individuals are the people that we want, I call them enhanced retirement benefits, right? Deferred compensation. These are the kind of people that we want to make sure that they're not going to go to somebody else because they just have it, they have the best of it at the organization that they're at. And certainly these are challenging for a lot of business owners. I'm not suggesting that this is easy. But certainly if you want to keep the very top performing individuals, these are things that need to be considered. Mark, I'm sure you've experienced all of this. What do you think about these mature stages?
One comment I would make as you talk about rewards and compensation and other benefits, I like to see at this level of the organization that those rewards have some alignment with our expectations, and that people understand what drives those rewards, not just arbitrary or discretionary reward systems. And so maybe a performance-based structure, or there's plenty of ways to approach that, but there needs to be correlation between what we ask them to do and and the ways we're going to reward them, and they need to understand that correlation.
Yeah, Dirk, thoughts on that?
No, I think you guys covered it.
Yeah, I agree with you. We're huge advocates of performance compensation and rewards. And so, for us, when we're building high performance companies, performance compensation is right in line with that. So thank you, Mark, for bringing that to our attention. Moving forward. Yeah, we talked about this goal, right? Companies with high high employee engagement, build a system of structured communication. The goal of this is, to retain our highest performing employees, while building the culture, right, or maintaining a culture that does not tolerate underperforming employees. And I think about this, underperforming employees, we've all experienced that in our businesses, and in our workforces. It might even be a teammate right next to you who's underperforming. And I think we don't want to enable underperformance in our business. I want to empower high performance behavior in our business. So we do this through what we call structured communication. One of the big downfalls in businesses is communication. When we do surveys, communication is oftentimes one of the top challenges that employees will bring up. But I like to think of structured communication. I'm going to hit this quickly. One is, from a leadership perspective, I need to be able to speak to the entire company, business culture, organizational objectives, like what are we trying to build? What are we doing? What's the impact? What is our purpose? When I'm talking to the entire company, what is the health of the company? So sort of that organizational level communication, where you can communicate with everybody from the top to the bottom, right? All levels. And then we have communication that's divisional or departmental. It's really just for those specific areas of the business that need to understand the company goals, certainly, but they also need to know what their divisional and departmental goals and strategies are. So that's really important when you're thinking about departments. You think about your sales department, your operations, your administrative departments, et cetera, finance. Those departments work internally inside the company. They do need to engage with other parts of the company, but they also need their own communication for those areas of the business. And then within those areas of the business and areas of the company, I've got teams, right? So I got team communication. This might be the team on a project, right? We have this project, we've got a project manager, a coordinator, we've got a superintendent, we've got a certain amount of tradesmen in the field, doing the work. So that's a team. Now I've got to be able to communicate within that team. And then ultimately, I need to have individual communication. Individual communication ranges from individual training, skill set development, and performance coaching and employee evaluations. So when you think about those different levels, it's really important that I communicate throughout the organization, from the very top organizational down through the divisions and departments, into the teams, and then to every individual. This develops what we call structured communication environment, where people now have the information that they need to work in the business. We've only got 10 minutes left, so I think we need to move on, Dirk.
I agree. If you want to look,
I want you to deal with the 12 questions, certainly, unless there's any burning desires from the panel here.
No, you're doing good. Good.
Yeah, I was going to check, Mike.
Still got a little bit to cover.
Agreed.
Any other questions in chat? I see nothing in chat, so we must be hopefully keeping you engaged. If you guys are engaged, let me see some thumbs up. Keep on going though, Dirk, through this.
Okay. Yeah, I'll keep going. All right. So one of the things that when we talk about engagement is, how do we measure it? And so I'm a Gallup certified strengths coach. And so this material comes from Gallup, and there's 12 questions that they recommend you ask to measure employee engagement. So these are high-performing companies, and that's what high-performing companies do. Ultimately, your people want to know that someone cares and what they do matters. So the way that we measure that is by asking these 12 questions. Number one, do I know what's expected of me? Do I have the equipment and material I need to do my work right? At work, do I have the opportunity to do what I do best every day? In the last 7 days, have I received recognition or praise for good work? I'll just pause on that one for a second. I find that that's one that we forget to do. And many companies and organizations we're so focused on getting the work done and making corrections and providing feedback that we don't give the recognition or the praise for the good work. So very important, especially in the last 7 days. Does my supervisor or someone at work seem to care about me as a person? And is there someone at work who encourages my development? So really, maybe some surprising questions there, maybe not. But you see sort of where they're focused. Do I have clarity? Do I understand what's expected? Do I receive recognition? Do people seem to care about my work and encourage my development? The next 6 questions are similar. So at work, do my opinions seem to count? Number 8, does the mission purpose of my company make me feel my work is important? Are my coworkers committed to doing quality work? Do I have a best friend at work? In the last 6 months, have I talked to someone about my progress? And this last year, have I had opportunities at work to learn and grow? So let me pause there, and Mike or Mark, feel free to jump in.
Yeah, Mark, I'm sure you've seen this before, but any comments?
No, that's just a really powerful list, and it's easy to overlook, especially I think in our industry where we're so focused on tasks and seeing results. We're looking for what hasn't been done or what needs to be fixed, and it's so task oriented. It's hard to sometimes step back and think about how our people are feeling.
Yeah, Mark, all of us have been around for a lot of years in business. We probably have, well over 100 years of experience just between the 3 of us. So we've seen what work does, right? I always say work is a 4-letter word. So why are we doing it, right? Because that's what really matters. And at the bottom of the slide, I just want to point out, people want to know that someone cares and that what they do matters. Dirk, and I know that really came from you, but I think for me, that's one of the most powerful statements that we can make about this whole entire process, is that people want to know that we care about them and their families, and that the work that they do matters to the company, right? We need to show them that. We need to make sure that our managers are showing them that. And so as we grow and scale, this becomes more difficult, and that's why we take so much time to make sure that we help our business owner clients consider these factors as we move through this. And I think this is a process that should certainly take place at least once or twice every couple of years. Dirk, I know that you probably have a comment on that as well, but I want to be in tune. Are we really doing this? Are our people able to answer affirmatively to these 12 questions?
Yeah, I've run into a lot of CEOs who resist the notion of an employee satisfaction or an employee engagement survey. To Mark, to your point, in construction, it's like, hey, we just got to get things done. We got to be productive. And the irony of that is, if you're checking for these questions, you are directly checking for, is my workforce engaged, which has a direct impact on productivity. So right. It's ironic that we skip it.
Right. Agreed.
Yeah, no doubt.
All right. So let's wrap up with this question. Thinking about what is the number one reason people quit. And I want to go back to the Gallup survey.
Before you show anything, though, I would like to see if anybody would like to chime in.
Yeah,
what is the number one reason people quit? Can anybody tell us? And by the way, we did get several thumbs up. So by the way, people are engaged. One person said money. Another person said cultural fit. What else? Any others out there? Yeah, thank you, Knight. Good to see you, my friend. Lack of recognition. It's another one. Yeah,
those are all great comments.
All right, so tell us, Dirk, What is the answer?
Well, according to Gallup, and this data is a little old, but it's 2017. But I'll have a newer response to you. But according to them, it really is the manager. So the single biggest decision you make in your job, bigger than all the rest, is who you name manager. When you name the wrong person manager, nothing fixes that bad decision. Not compensation, not benefits, nothing. So I love the guesses that you just rattled off. Money, culture, recognition, all those things certainly have an impact. But the number one reason and the biggest influence is the manager.
Yeah,
So-
no doubt. I think that's so powerful. I mean, I can't think of the numbers, literally hundreds of conversations I've had with employees who said, I cannot stand my manager, right? I don't like my manager. And it's not that we're not, we don't have good managers. I would submit that probably most everybody who's a manager listening in on this particular, session is probably cares. And so you're probably one of the good managers. But it's really important to understand the impact that we have on our people as managers. So Dirk, tell us what that impact is.
Yes, I'm looking at the time, so I was already off to the next topic, if that's right. But let me just do this and give you the update. So for 2021, we took a look back at the Gallup State of the Global Workplace report, and guess what? It's still the manager. Of course, creating a culture in which employees are engaged and thriving requires more than policy. Managers account for 70% of the variance in team engagement, and they must be upskilled from boss to coach so that they can have honest, meaningful, and developmental conversations. I'm going to keep moving, Mike, so that
I see it. I see we got 2 minutes left here.
Finish up in time. So the way to upskill those managers, there's really three key elements. Number one is communication. We talked about the structured communication a minute ago, being really intentional, showing our managers how to do that, and ensuring they are doing it. Number two is psychological safety to speak up, which may surprise you. It may sound a little touchy-feely, but here's the way I want you to think about it. If you don't have psychological safety, what do you have? You have fear. Yeah. Those are the only two options. You either have it, it's either safe to speak up, or we operate in an environment of fear. So think of it in those stark contrasts and realize that this is really important to have an engaged employee and engaged team. And then number three is providing those growth opportunities for the team, especially leveraging their strengths. All right, I know we need to go into wrap-up mode, so let me just mention there is some homework you can do. You can look at this list and certainly do some of this work in between. And let me wrap up with the ways that you can contact us. If you'd like any kind of follow-up, and apologies, Mark, I don't have your email on here, but I'm sure the coordinators can send that out to everyone.
Yep. Yeah, and I'm sure that they will be doing that as well. So it was an oversight on our part. I apologize for that. So that's certainly not being a great team member as part of this element here. So our apologies, Mark.
No worries.
Yeah, any final, I know it's like we're right at the end. If you could give us a thumbs up, if you got something positive out of this, please let us know. And we certainly look forward to seeing you. There's the thumbs up. I know we had several thumbs up earlier, and probably people are getting ready to leave. Mark, thank you for your participation. Dirk, thank you for leading us through today's session. I always like to say it's an honor to be with other business leaders. So thank you all for attending, and have a fantastic day today.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, everyone.
All right, thanks, Dirk.
Thanks, Mike. Good seeing you.
Appreciate it. Talk to you soon.